The Exodus story is one of the most powerful narratives in the Bible, but few recognize that it begins with 7 courageous women whose wisdom, resilience, and faith directly challenge Pharaoh's tyranny and pave the way for Israel's deliverance. Like many other women in the Bible, these female leaders of faith defy oppression, embody God's purpose, and play an essential role in Israel's history. The 7 women in Exodus 1-2 are Shiphrah and Puah, 2 Hebrew midwives who defy Pharaoh and save life. Moses' mother and sister, who create a mini-ark and rescue Moses. Pharaoh's daughter and her maidservant, who resist Pharaoh's control. Save a Hebrew child, bless an enslaved Hebrew woman, and raise Moses as their own. Zipporah, Moses' wife, who protects her husband's life more than once. These 7 women promote life and prepare the way for Israel's exodus from Egypt, and in doing so, they disrupt Pharaoh's anti-creational death-dealing abuses of power. Before we move on to the stories of 7 strong women, if you write in the comments where and at what time you are watching the video, we can see how many brothers and sisters in religion we truly have. If you have subscribed to the channel and liked the video, let's move on to the stories. God bless you. 1. 2 Hebrew midwives bring life. During creation, God tells humanity to be fruitful and multiply and fill the land. And Exodus 1-7 declares that the Israelites were fruitful and multiplied, so that the land was filled with them. Israel's growth in Egypt is a good thing, but Pharaoh calls it a bad thing. As the people of Israel continue multiplying in Egypt, Pharaoh feels threatened by their increasing power in numbers. The type to stomp on anyone who presents a challenge to his power, he orders 2 Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, to execute a population control strategy. If it is a son, he says, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. This decree is not an act of kindness toward the girls. The story has already described Pharaoh as a merciless tyrant willing to enslave and brutalize the Israelites. So why does he disregard the Hebrew daughters? He lets them live because he doesn't think they have any power. The irony is thick here, because Pharaoh's words actually associate the daughters with life. If it is a daughter, then she shall live, and the story will unfold with God's power of life ultimately defeating Pharaoh's weapon of death. The Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, emerge as early advocates of justice, courageously defying oppression by rejecting Pharaoh's brutal edict to kill the Hebrew baby boys. Because they feared God, they let the boys live. Pharaoh sets himself in opposition to God by brutally enslaving the Israelites and murdering their baby boys. He intends to crush God-given life, but the women of this story work to preserve and care for life. They are partnering with God and therefore wielding immense power, which is unseen by Pharaoh. When Pharaoh realizes that Hebrew baby boys are still appearing, he confronts the midwives, and they cunningly explain that Hebrew women are especially lively, always delivering their babies before the midwives get there to help. Pharaoh seems stumped. He has little control over what happens in the birthing room, and in this story, overshadowed by death, these women pursue God's purpose to bring life. Still, the midwives' refusal to kill Hebrew boys forces Pharaoh to try another tactic. This time he enlists the people of Egypt to help. Every son who is born you shall throw into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. Despite being outwitted by the 2 midwives, Pharaoh's blind arrogance prevents him from seeing women as powerful. Story 2. 2 daughters and a sister protect life. Asterisk next. To daughters Moses' mother, a daughter of Levi and the Egyptian princess. Pharaoh's own daughter is his cruel command. When Moses is born, his mother looks at her son and sees that he is good. This story echoes Genesis 1, in which God looks around at his whole creation and repeats 7 times that it is good, in contrast to Pharaoh, who is determined to destroy life. Moses' mother recognizes and protects the good gift of life, so to shield him from Pharaoh's pronouncement of death. Moses' mother hides her son for 3 months, and when she can't hide him any longer, she creates a waterproof vessel, or a tiva in Hebrew, and places Moses inside it as she floats him down the Nile. The Hebrew word tiva occurs in only one other biblical story. Noah builds a tiva, usually translated ark, to save his family from a flood. Moses' mother, like Noah, partners with God to build an ark and provide rescue from a watery death. As Moses floats down the Nile in the teva, Pharaoh's daughter spots it floating among the reeds as she bathes in the river. She sends her maidservant to collect it and, upon opening it, finds a crying baby inside. In contrast to the hard-heartedness of her father, she feels compassion for the vulnerable child and chooses mercy over allegiance to her father's tyranny. She rescues a boy that her father has sentenced to death by drawing him from the Nile, the very place her father commanded him to be thrown. The name Moses means one who is drawn out or pulled out. He does not and could not pull himself out of the threatening waters. He is drawn out and rescued by women who show compassion and preserve life. Now Moses' sister, Miriam, has been watching over her baby brother from a distance and courageously speaks to the Egyptian princess, offering to find a Hebrew nurse for the boy. Pharaoh's daughter agrees, so Miriam strategically chooses Moses' own mother. Pharaoh's daughter ends up handing Moses back to his mother and promises to pay her wages if she agrees to nurse the boy. When Moses no longer needs a nurse, his mother returns him to the royal family, and Pharaoh's daughter raises Moses as her own son. Once again, 2 women work together to bring life, blinded by arrogance. Pharaoh fails to see the wisdom and power displayed through the 6 women we have seen so far. Shiphrah, Puah, Moses' mother, Moses' sister, Pharaoh's daughter, and her maidservant. Moses' family and, ultimately, all of Israel is restored because of the actions of these women. And then, at the end of Exodus 2, one more woman steps forward to protect life. She's the 7th. Story 3. A wife saves life. This 7th woman is Zipporah, the daughter of a Midianite named Reuel. When Moses grows up, he violently murders an Egyptian slave master who is physically abusing a Hebrew slave. To escape punishment from Pharaoh, Moses flees into Midian. As a stranger all alone in Midian, Moses is vulnerable. But he marries Zipporah and finds protection and a new identity with her family. By rescuing Moses, Zipporah becomes the 7th woman in this sequence of female deliverers in Exodus 1-2. We get to learn a little more about her in Exodus 4:24-26, but it came about at the overnight encampment on the way that the Lord met Moses and sought to put him to death. So Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and threw it at Moses' feet. And she said, "You are indeed a groom of blood to me." So he left him alone. At that time she said, "You are a groom of blood because of the circumcision." This strange little story describes God threatening Moses' life. It could be a consequence for murdering the Egyptian or a consequence for failing to observe God's instructions about circumcision. Either way, Zipporah is the wise person in the narrative who knows what to do and who saves Moses' life. Without her intervention, Moses dies. The Exodus begins with women who partner with God. Old Testament scholar Phyllis Tribble says this about the women of Exodus 1-2: two midwives, a Hebrew mother, a sister, the daughter of Pharaoh, and her maidens fill these passages. The midwives, given the names Shiphrah and Puah, defy the mighty Pharaoh. The mother and sister work together to save their baby son and brother. The daughter of Pharaoh identifies with them rather than with her father. This portrait breaks filial allegiance, crosses class lines, and transcends racial and political differences. A collage of women unites for salvation. With them, the Exodus originates. The 7 women of Exodus 1-2 are not just minor figures in the background. They are architects of redemption, planting the seeds that grow into Israel's liberation. The story of Israel's exodus from Egypt often brings to mind images of Moses standing with his staff raised over the Red Sea, or a plague of frogs hopping through Egyptian homes. But the Exodus begins with the women who partner with God to bring about Israel's rescue. This story couldn't take place without them, and their important role is further emphasized by Pharaoh's dismissal of daughters as a threat to his control. He says Hebrew daughters can live because he isn't worried about them overpowering him. But these women are empowered by God and prove him wrong. Pharaoh represents the consequences of humanity's rejection of God, the unjust use of power and oppression of the vulnerable. He has all the authority of a human dictator and wields it to bring about death. But the women of this story courageously oppose Pharaoh's death-dealing ways and partner with God to support life, treating every human being with dignity. Dear brothers and sisters in faith, don't forget to write Amen in the comments, like the video and subscribe to the channel. This way, you help us spread the words of God and Christ. God bless you.